the teachers, students, parents, or guardians that we worked with, their well-being scores started improving. The, the students' test scores were improving only in those classrooms, and we weren't
Wow.
working with them. What we were seeing was you change a few people within an ecosystem, maybe the people that get to come to a conference, and it
Right.
ends up affecting people that sometimes they never even meet.
Welcome to Engage Presents. I'm Engage co-founder and president Jake Olson. In this interview series, I ask Engage talent the most common questions we hear from event planners to help you get to know them and their stories in 15 minutes or less. Thanks for listening. Welcome to Engage Presents. We are very excited to have Shawn Achor with us. He is a Harvard scholar, much smarter than I am, so I'm batting above my average right now here, Shawn. Hopefully I can keep up with you. New York Times bestseller. You talked a lot about happiness. You've done interviews with people like Oprah about the science of happiness. You're, again, a Harvard scholar, so you know what you're talking about, Shawn. I'm very excited to hear about what you have to say today. So to not steal your thunder, I do want to hear from you of who you are and what kind of takeaways would an audience get when hearing you speak.
Great. Thanks, Jake. So I think in terms of background, as you mentioned, I spent 12 years at Harvard researching the science of happiness, looking at positive psychology, seeing if we could understand how the brain works. And what we found is as the brain becomes more positive, every single business and educational outcome we could test for started improving dramatically. So what we were seeing was that happiness was this incredible advantage to the brain. As we learned about that and learned about what people could do to change their brain, to change the lens to which they view the world, we started realizing we couldn't just be doing this in an ivory tower. So I went out and traveled to 50 countries, working in Soweto, South Africa, and shanty towns, working with banks in the middle of the banking crisis, working with hospitals in the midst of the pandemic to see how this research could come alive. And what we found was just absolutely incredible. What we got to do is to battle test this research to show how the very lens through which someone views the world predicts what happens next. So I got hooked. I've been doing this now for 2 decades, traveling around the world, trying to do this research and then to share this research with organizations. And then not just speaking about it, what we then do is we research it as well. So for example, I just got finished working with a large hospital system that was not profitable and they had to restructure, and then COVID hit. And we started doing this research with them. And not only did I go out and speak, but we also started doing these interventions, these experiments, department by department. And what we found is while the burnout rates were skyrocketing within the hospital system and worldwide, the departments that we touched and showed them this research and got them to do the practical habits that are in my talk, what we found was that the burnout rates dropped by 50% of what they were pre-COVID, while the other departments in the same hospital system, their burnout rates were still increasing. So what you could see was that this research really did have an impact on people's lives when you expose them to it. And not only did it affect the people that heard the research, but it turns out that the bottom line of the entire hospital system improved. They're profitable now for the first time, and they have top 1% patient safety in the nation. So it created this cascade effect. So in my research that I've been doing since then, I have 2 main threads that I like to talk about in my talk. One of them is that idea that happiness is this incredible advantage within our lives. And happiness not as pleasure, happiness is the joy you feel moving towards your potential. But the other side of it is not only was happiness this incredible advantage, but as we were working with these organizations, and I think that this is something that we're speaking on much more now. I think that of the 2 threads, this is where people keep gravitating, is my newest book, Big Potential, which is wrapped around this idea of that if you're going to pursue success or happiness or mental health, you have to do it in an interconnected way instead of alone. So there's 2 studies that I want to share with you that I think became metaphors for this whole research. One of them was researchers in Virginia found that if you look at a hill you need to climb in front of you, if you look at that hill by yourself, your brain shows you a picture of a hill that looks 20 to 30% steeper than the picture your brain shows you of that hill when you're standing next to someone you're told is going to climb the hill with you.
No way.
It's amazing. I've been working with 6 battalions of Marines out of Camp Pendleton. I know you're out in California, Jake. And we've been working with them, trying to show them how when they see challenges together, their brain actually shows them a different challenge, which releases all this energy to be able to accomplish that task or to increase your ability to believe that your behavior matters. So what we're finding is things like success or happiness, those are not self-help. We actually have to pursue those ways. They're not individual sports, right? We have to pursue them in an interconnected way. And when we do so, those challenges at an organization, at a school, at a hospital, they actually contract and we are able to move forward. So not only can we see that happening in the brain, but another study that was done was on these fireflies. This is how I start Big Potential. And they found that fireflies, when they light up individually randomly, their success rate at reproduction per night is 3%. But when they light up as an interconnected community, only 2 species figured out how to do this. They all light up and they all go dark at the same time. And when they do so, their success rate goes from 3% to 82% per bug. The whole system starts doing better. And what we realized was this is exactly what we were seeing with the research on humans, that when we lit up together, it created these virtuous cycles. So as we were working within these communities, not only the work I was doing at Harvard, where we found that the greatest predictor of success and happiness at Harvard was your social connection score, other people. But what we found at Google was the greatest predictor of a team success rate was other people. It was your social connection with the people you felt on your team. So in the midst of a hybrid world, a virtual world, in person, what we kept finding over and over again is that if we found a way of expanding power out, enhancing the ecosystem, and lighting up together, it created these positive changes that create a cascade. So it wasn't just a small potential. Big potential is what happens when the entire ecosystem starts to light up together.
That is amazing, Shawn. That is absolutely amazing. You're getting given a new definition on what it means to be lit.
Right. There you go. Exactly.
I have to ask, just given your travel, how many passports have you gone through?
Oh my goodness. I've only gone through 2 passports, but they keep getting thicker and thicker. So I have one that I just love because I went to 33 countries in 1 year when I
Oh
was
my,
starting up this research before kids. So we did
that
so
has
much
to
work
be.
because we wanted to see if this research was universal, because we wanted to see, does this just apply to a Harvard student or does this just apply on Wall Street? We want to see, does this work with school teachers in rural parts of Arkansas, or does this work with CEOs in China as they're trying to create manufacturing plants?
That is amazing. And I can't imagine your miles that you've racked up too, man. That's crazy. So tell me, what is it like to work with Shawn Achor for event planner? Beforehand, on stage, pre-event, pre-call, post, event. What is it like to work with you?
Well, I'm a happiness researcher, so my goal is to create happiness. So what I've tried to do is be as low maintenance as possible. And so
Okay.
one of the ways that I do that is in the midst of the pandemic, we started doing this and we realized it was really connecting to people. I stopped using slides. So my tech check, it takes like 30 seconds. You literally put on a mic and I'm ready to go. So there's nothing you have to approve or look at. But what it does is it makes this authentic feel with the audience. Like I feel like every time I come in for a tech check, we still come in early, but they're like, "Well, we're done." All right, everyone's on break for a little bit because it goes so quickly. I'm happy to explain the research beforehand. I tailor each of the talks because we have so much research over the past 2 decades that I can actually talk about research that we've done in those specific industries, whether it's health or whether it's manufacturing or whether it's in education or government work. We've pretty much covered the gamut. I've worked with almost half of the Fortune 100 companies at this point. But the other thing that is great is, first of all, I think if I was planning on having someone come in and speak, I'd want to know that they're engaging and interesting. And I think there's lots of speakers that do that. In fact, the entire talk, I'm trying to get people to laugh or be engaged with one another. In fact, the most common comment I get after the talk is that I should be a stand-up comic, because it's literally the whole segment is designed to keep you engaged the entire time. So whether it's happening at 8 in the morning or happening in the afternoon after everyone's had lunch or after people have had 2 hours of cocktails in the evening, that people find a way of being able to connect to it. But I also want it to not just be people speaking at you. So in every one of my talks, I do an interactive experiment that, again, low maintenance, doesn't require any effort on the team there, no logistics. So what we do is we get people to partner up with someone that's sitting next to them. They think something bad's going to happen to them. I make them partner up with somebody they're currently not married to. And then all that happens, they're already getting nervous and smiling and laughing a little bit, but they've introduced themselves to the other person. And then I get one person using all of their willpower to control their thoughts, their emotions, their hands, and their face. And then the other person should try and remain neutral. Then the other person makes eye contact and smiles at that person. And within 7 seconds, they break. 80 to 85% of people worldwide end up breaking. And I've done this experiment 1,300 times in 50 countries. And then when we flip it around, it's even worse. Everyone's laughing and roaring. It's a great time to get B-roll if you're making videos during the conference to show afterwards. Like everyone's laughing at our conference. But what it's showing is social and emotional contagion. So even when you're trying not to, as I smile at somebody else, I'm actually lighting up the mirroring systems in their brain. So their brain thinks that they're the one that's smiling, and their brain can drop dopamine even if their face doesn't record it. In this case, you actually see the smile become contagious. And it allows us not only to talk about how our leadership or interactions with a client or with a patient can actually create a ripple effect of positive change, but also how we need to buffer ourselves against the negativity, stress, and uncertainty that we can pick up like secondhand smoke. So in the talk, when people leave the talk, I leave them with researched habits that they could do at the end that we've been researching with pretty much every population that take less than 2 minutes a day that build up a physical an emotional immune system response, like the physical immune system response. The emotional immune system response stops the negative from coming in and allows there to be a one-way street so that as people are leaving the conference, not only they've been validated that even being at the conference was researched to be valuable, but also they know that they're creating a ripple effect to people 2, 3, 4 degrees separate to people they might never even meet. In fact, we did the study in Flint, Michigan. I was working with the teachers there, trying to raise levels of happiness so they'd stay for more than 2 years. And what we found was the teachers, students, parents, or guardians that we worked with, their well-being scores started improving. The students' test scores were improving only in those classrooms, and we weren't working with them. What we were seeing was you change a few people within an ecosystem, maybe the people that get to come to a conference, and it ends up affecting people that sometimes they never even meet.
That is amazing. So there's a ripple effect of what you do there, then, Shawn.
Yeah, and it's so fun getting to see it happen because you can see it in the room. And not only does that happen, but one of the experiments that we did at LinkedIn, we got people to write a 2-minute positive text message each day, praising or thanking one person in their life. And what we found at LinkedIn in a study that we published in HBR, we found that if somebody received 3 touch points of praise over a 6-month period of time, their retention rates went from 80% to 94%. Same pay, same building. It took 6 minutes because 3 times the 2 minutes it took to write those. And you have 14-point swing because what you're seeing is it's changing the people that are there. And if somebody receives 3 touch points of praise post a conference doing this experiment, what we find is that they double the amount of praise that they were giving back out. So they turn into these praise prisms. So it's actually how not only you can hope that a talk is inspirational in the moment, but what we've been researching is, does this even matter? And what we really care about is not just how somebody feels when they leave the conference or what they tell their kids about when they come home, but we want to see that there's a quantifiable ripple effect 2, 3, 4 months down the road, 6 months down the road. In fact, these hospitals we've been working with have been 2 years down the road.
That is incredible. That is incredible. Okay, lastly, Shawn, real quick, I found this very interesting in your profile. What you went ahead and got a master's of divinity at Harvard, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So where does the MDiv kind of play into all this? Just, I know it's a big question, but why did you want to bring kind of religion, Christianity back into kind of your research about happiness?
Yeah, so I was studying Christian and Buddhist ethics, and I was looking at how your belief systems about the world change the way you act in it. Like, why do we give? Why do we forgive? Why do we wake up in the morning? So what I was so interested in is how the lens to which you view the world predicts what happens next. In fact, that's actually the theme of my next book that's coming out next year about how what we're finding is that the lens to which you view the world predicts what happens next. But that lens is malleable. We can change it. So by creating more meaning or creating rituals or habits like we saw in religious traditions, but also that we see in positive psychology, things that people could do with inside organizations or corporations, that not only are you changing your lens, but like that mirror neuron experiment that I mentioned, the interactive one, it turns out as your lens to which you view the world changes, it actually changes the lenses of the people in your ecosystem, even though you share no genetic or biological material with them. So you're wirelessly changing the lenses of the people around you, positive or negative. So what we're looking for is how do we continue to create that quantifiable and positive effect in people's lives and help them to believe their behavior matters.
Well, Shawn, I feel like we're lucky. We get a little preview of your next book here, man. We're excited to get it. But we just want to thank you so much for sharing with us just your research, what you've already done in life, and what you're again working on doing. Very, very obviously intelligent, very powerful, very impactful, and so we just appreciate you sharing a little bit about yourself and what you do. Very, very cool about just giving this to the world as well.
Thank you, Jake. Yeah, I love getting to do this. Every time I get to give a talk, it's just like a blessing. So thank you.
Awesome, man. Well, again, to book Shawn, view his profile, you can go on lessengage.com. But with that, there's another presentation of Engage Presents, and stay tuned for more guests to come.